All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the latest edition of What's New with LeanData. If you are new to these are a roughly quarterly webinar where we get to showcase the latest from LeanData and what we've been working on for our latest release. Now, we know that not everybody keeps up with everything that LeanData is working on, so these webinars are our chance to share with you the features and improvements that may be exciting to you. So today we'll be covering features from our most recent release that was actually just last week, but we'll also include a few features from our previous release that was back in January as well. Now, before we start, I do have a few housekeeping items I'd like to cover. Firstly, if you have a question, you should see a Q&A box in your interface there. So if you like, you can type in a question into that Q&A box. We'll do our best to address them as they come up, but we're not going to be able to get to all of them, so we'll follow up appropriately afterwards. Now, we also know that there are folks who want to review specific features that you're interested in more detail later on. So if you would like, we will also be generating a recording, and we'll share that after we've had a chance to process that recording. Now, today we'll primarily be discussing the features in our latest 7.x release. But to start, each of our releases isn't just a haphazardly thrown together grouping of features, but they're a result of listening. It's a result of listening to you, our customers, and the things that you're asking for and the things that are benefiting you the most and the things that would benefit you to have in our product. So as you guys work with your CSMs or your professional services consultants, we hear the things that you want from LeanData. And here are a few things that have been brought to the surface that this release has been organized around. So firstly, we want intelligent AI-assisted execution. And it's no secret that most companies are discussing and talking about ways to leverage AI to improve their processes. But we recognize this impact and this power that AI brings to the table also needs to fit within your processes. And especially now that a lot of companies are leveraging AI SDRs and agents as part of their go-to-market processes. Not everyone is ready for a complete handing over of their processes to AI. So the question is, how do we then incorporate AI into your existing processes to help you interpret data, enable your teams to work smarter, while maintaining the visibility into your core business logic? Next, we really prioritized enterprise readiness, specifically around the themes of governance and auditability and performance, so that you're able to scale your processes with confidence, knowing that you have a solid foundation that you're building on. And we also want to keep and maintain the adaptability that you know and love from LeanData as well. And last but not least, this has always been true, but something that we're continuing to enable for you is admin velocity. So many of you here are LeanData admins or operators, and you work in LeanData on a week-to-week or even sometimes day-to-day basis. And we want to make sure that your experience is as frictionless as possible and remove as much manual tasks as we can, allowing you to iterate faster. So today, we'll be hearing from 3 members of our product team. So I'll ask each of you to come on and introduce yourselves and maybe just your particular area of focus with LeanData's products. And we'll just go in the order that we see you on the screen. So we'll go Dax, then followed by Isabel, and then Daniel.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Dax Farhang, Director of Product Management here at LeanData. I'm responsible for the orchestration and buying groups teams.
Hey everyone, my name is Isabel. I'm a Senior Product Manager on the Orchestration team.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniel. I'm a Product Manager on the Scheduling team. That includes Book for Forms, Book Handoff, and Book Links.
Great, excellent. Thanks everyone. Well, we have a ton to discuss today, so I don't want to belabor the point. Let's just go ahead and get started. We'll start off with buying groups. For those of you who aren't familiar with buying groups, our buying group solution is our approach to building buying groups by tracking sales and marketing signals from different personas at your different accounts. And then we use that data to identify the different roles and personas based on your own customizable criteria. What we then do is aggregate that information within a central buying group journey object, and then we track the buying group's collective engagement across your whole buying cycle. Now, part of this is the intelligence to recognize and categorize titles intelligently using AI while still maintaining control for all of our LeanData admins. So For buying groups, our latest enhancements are around this idea of titles and how we categorize and calibrate that. So I won't belabor that in anymore. Dax, if you could tell us about the latest that we have around title clustering.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin. Next slide. The feature I'm covering today is the buying group's title cluster calibration. If you're familiar with the buying group's motion, you know a single lead is no longer the center of the universe. Rather, success depends on seeing the full buying committee, such as champions, decision makers, and technical evaluators across the account. The challenge is that job titles are messy. One company's head of revenue ops is another company's director of sales strategy. If you can't accurately group these roles into the right functional categories, your buying group strategy will break down. This is why we introduced Title Cluster Calibration, powered by our proprietary language model and the latest buying groups edition. It's purpose-built to classify job titles and levels quickly and accurately at scale. The model is pre-trained on millions of titles, and the calibration can be fine-tuned to match how your business defines buying group members. With it, you can automatically group millions of titles into the personas that matter most to your GTM team. You can also train the AI on your definitions so it reflects your unique market and segmentation. Finally, the model is self-hosted within the LeanData platform, so it's fast and your data never leaves our infrastructure. The result is a clean, consistent title data that ensures that your reps engage the right buying group members with the right context and without manual overhead.
Great. So it sounds like this is going to help in those situations where things are not perfect as far as the way the titles are formatted. But I think a lot of folks are a little apprehensive about, are my titles ready for this particular feature? Is that something that someone needs to prepare their database for as far as any sort of standardization? Or is this designed to kind of take care of all of that for you?
That's a great question and a very common question. The answer is no. You don't need to do any data cleansing or massaging in order to prepare for title clustering. It's prepared to handle things like periods or abbreviations. It's also multilingual as well. So regardless of the format, it's going to be able to normalize all those titles according to your cluster values.
And, for those who work with AI that are familiar with this need to sort of iterate on that process, is there an opportunity to do that here to where, hey, the clustering is run, the calibration is run, but things still look a little bit off? Can there be some adjustments made and to run it again?
Yes, absolutely. You can always rerun the calibration and continue that training exercise. We also offer a manual mapping capability, which allows administrators to simply download and say, this specific title maps to this specific cluster value, at which point that will not only help influence the behavior going forward, but also override any behavior to assume or make sure that we always match that cluster to that particular title.
Great. So it sounds like there's a lot of things in place to just make sure that it's still a collaborative process and we're not just AI's handling everything, but there's still a chance to provide your own input into that.
You got it. The balance of human and machine oversight.
Yep. That's the name of the game as of right now. Well, thanks for sharing that feature with us. Hopefully a lot of folks get good use out of that. I do want to make a somewhat abrupt transition. We're going to move into some of our orchestration features now. For most of you, you already know about LeanData orchestration. And this is how we will automate your go-to-market processes through your whole revenue cycle. And we allow you to do this through a visual interface that looks like a flowchart rather than having to know how to code. Now, because LeanData sits as this layer directly in your CRM, where all of your data is already living, then you can efficiently execute any go-to-market motion across your whole buyer journey using LeanData's automation. But now here's where we get to one of the most highly anticipated features in this release is how does LeanData then incorporate AI and intelligence into the routing system, the orchestration system that folks are already familiar with. So Dax, since you've been spearheading some of our AI efforts as well, I'll turn it over to you. Could you describe for us the AI inference node and how that works?
Thanks again, Kevin. Absolutely super excited to talk about the AI inference node. Feel free to advance to the next slide. As you know, LeanData has long led the market in deterministic routing, using the rich data inside Salesforce to power precise rules-based automation. But even the best rules engines struggle with unstructured data and CRM knowledge gaps. For example, critical signals often live in contact us forms, demo request notes, or even call transcripts. Historically, those were automation black holes that were either ignored or potentially managed with brittle, hard to maintain rules. The AI inference node changes all that. It's a premium flow builder node that embeds a reasoning engine directly into your orchestration graph by allowing you to make a call out to the generative AI of your choice to interpret unstructured context in real time. This node will then convert the response into structured, actionable data that informs the rest of your routing flow. You're no longer choosing between AI and rules. AI interprets the intent, and then the deterministic routing capabilities executes with precision. So for example, you could use this feature to analyze a demo request. And if a competitor is mentioned, you could set the urgency to high, and you could capture the competitor's name. Alternatively, you might determine that it's not actually a sales request at all, but it's just a service request that should be delegated accordingly. This feature is also purpose-built for the enterprise. LeanData provides an orchestration layer, but you use your own OpenAI or Gemini keys, so your data remains within your security environment. You can test the prompts against real records, and we've built in guardrails to ensure responses return only the exact data points that you need. The result is the optimal combination of probabilistic reasoning and deterministic execution working together inside your GDM processes.
That's amazing, Dax. I think one thing that, with AI, a lot of folks are experimenting. You've given a good use case here of taking an unstructured paragraph of text and being able to make routing decisions off of that confidently. Are there any other types of use cases that you can think of that may be different than, taking a paragraph of text? What other types of inputs do you anticipate folks using this for?
Yeah, great question. As I mentioned, oftentimes CRM instances are just going to simply have knowledge gaps. For example, it might be a gap about company information, the number of employees or certain data that's readily available in public sources. As you all know, public LLMs, OpenAI, Gemini, they're constantly scraping the web and accumulating this information. So it's a good way that you can simply ask and augment what you already know within your CRM instance, within your routing flow.
Got it. Now, one of the things that people like most about LeanData is the ability to go troubleshoot and see exactly how LeanData made a decision with a particular record. Now that we're introducing this AI layer into it, are people going to have that same kind of visibility? And how are people going to go back and trace the path of how a record ended up at the destination that it did?
Great question. We understand that the auditing and traceability is one of the hallmarks of why our customers value LeanData so much, and we definitely aren't going to compromise that with the introduction of this new feature. So as I mentioned, not only will you have the ability to preview and test its output prior to actually importing or injecting it into your graph, but all of the information that's accumulated, the response to requests that we get back from OpenAI or Gemini will also be accumulated and available inside the auditing logs so that you can see that same path just as you would for any other node within the graph.
Okay, well, that's good. The ability to test it and also the storage of the outputs there is going to be a big help. A lot of our folks have a really high volume of records that go through a routing graph, and that typically hasn't been an issue for LeanData, but we're introducing a different kind of a processing here, right? And we're introducing more intelligence, which takes more time. And it also, depending on our customers' usage of their AI tokens, that could potentially spike based on their usage of this. Do you have any recommendations, or how would someone ensure that, the volume of requests that are getting sent through this doesn't get out of hand?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first and foremost, we've done everything that we can to make sure that this is as performant as possible for customers. And we do have some timeout limits that are built into it to make sure that it doesn't just sit and never return. With that said, I do think that you touched on a few best practices. One might be using a single isolated key for your routing flows, thereby making sure that any of the traffic that is going through those routing flows is really only the only piece of information that is interacting with that AI. You're not competing with any other chat requests.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm really excited to see what our customers do with this. We have certain use cases in mind when we roll these things out, but our customers are very creative. So they'll come up with different ways to utilize this in the future, and looking forward to seeing that. All right, Dax, any last comments on the AI inference node before we move on to our next feature here?
Last comment for all customers, all of our AI features are opt-in. We will not turn them on unless you go and turn them on yourselves. We know that many of you have AI policies that require you to go through some compliance before you're allowed to turn them on. So that's definitely something for you to do. Just go to the admin UI, go to AI tools and toggle the switch and you can start using them.
Great. That's a good call out, Dax, that it's not automatically starting to operate within your system. You need to enable and turn it on if you're in an organization that does allow for that. So thanks for bringing that up. All right. So let's go ahead and move into our next set of features. And we're starting with one that's a little bit from earlier this year, not this latest release. We added a formula builder interface for admins who need more expressive logic without making their graphs really hard to manage. So Isabel, could you tell us a little bit more about this particular feature and what it can do for our admins?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Next slide, please. So yeah, we've introduced a new formula builder into our flow builders. This actually applies both to our orchestration product as well as scheduling. If you're a scheduling customer, pay attention here. But what we've introduced is this new formula builder modal that helps guide you through inserting functions into your graph logic. So think something like Excel, where you're not necessarily writing out the certain functions, but you're just applying the arguments and the values that you want to calculate. Some of the supported functions we have include average, count, sum, concatenate for strings, minimum, maximum, and then standard arithmetic. This includes addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, as well as a line builder as a part of this. And what we're really trying to do here is to help just make it easier to support those more complex kind of flows that involve some kind of math associated with it. With the formula builder itself, it will help prevent any syntax errors because it is going to come in and try to validate any of the records that you put in. And it just improves the ease of use in general for admins who are trying to apply this to their graphs.
Mm-hmm. With this, is there any way that you can, when I enter a formula within Salesforce's interface, there's a way to validate that and test that? Is that validation also true here in this interface too?
Yeah, so you'll see at the bottom right there, that section is really going to help with the validation. So under formula, you'll see a preview of the formula that you have inserted. It's going to make sure all of the values are the right object, are the right value types, so that it's not going to actually interrupt your routing when you actually do implement it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Question here also about ways to test this out. So not quite validation, but as far as, is there any way that you can test out a formula is outputting the proper thing? Does it work, let's say, with routing preview or something like that? How would someone validate that this is working properly?
Yeah, so this should work with, this will work with routing preview. So let's say you put in a specific lead, it should show what the actual output of that formula was, similar to how you would see that in audit logs as well. So that information will be shown. That will be a way to kind of validate the actual output of these functions.
Cool. How complicated can we get with the formulas here? Can we reference multiple different objects, or is it only on the object that is being routed? Can we nest functions within functions in a formula? Is that still going to work?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Nesting, we do support, and I think that's what's really helpful with the validation here. If you were to nest, that can quickly get very messy. So we do make sure that's validated before you ultimately insert it into your graph. As far as the other object types, we do support any variables being added into these functions as well. So long as you have an object stored as a variable, we'd be able to support that regardless of, what router you're in, as well as any kind of field type that you're referencing as well.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for walking us through that feature. That was from our earlier release this year. But moving on to something that is part of our newest release that just released last week, this create record node. I think the name is pretty self-explanatory. I can guess what this does, but if you can walk us through how it works and what it's used for.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So with our create record node, it's essentially a new flow builder node that automates the creation for any is creatable standard or custom Salesforce object. So before, a little bit limited into what kinds of objects that you can create. With this node, it's just expanded to any object type here. Now, what you would have to do is simply specify the object type of the record you want to create, populate those fields. Just a big note there, you will want to make sure you are populating the fields that are required for that object type. And then, that will be automatically created. You can still reference that and update that new created record down the graph by storing it in a variable. And really the goal here is I think it will just enable a lot more use cases for you all, such as we've heard a lot about event creation and case creation in various different graphs. This will essentially just enable that.
Okay. So I'm seeing here the bullet point about any is creatable standard or custom object Salesforce types. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that means if folks are not familiar with what that refers to? Like what types of objects are we talking about here?
Yeah, so this is very much linked to just your Salesforce settings. There's certain objects that just can't be created. They more or less represent like logs, for example. That's not something you would manually create. So that's just a setting. You may have some custom objects that you've set as something that you allow for creation for. That's kind of what it's referencing there. Similarly, like events, cases, tasks, products, those are all creatable standard objects as well.
Okay, got it. When we're talking about auto creating records, there are always the risk of creating duplicate records. So would you have any recommendations or any safeguards around preventing creating duplicates if we're going to add this as an automated step into your process?
Yeah, so with that, I would leverage some of our other nodes. We do have some duplicate nodes that really help with that duplicate detection in our flow builder. So I would recommend you add some of those before you actually ultimately create the record. Basically check, hey, does a record like this already exist? If not, create it. If it does exist, maybe you just want to leverage that one. So that would be the best practice I'd recommend there.
Yeah, that's good. So when you're creating these new records, oftentimes there will be sort of inherent relationships with records and other records, maybe on different objects. Will we be able to write those relationships onto the newly created record? So I don't know, for example, let's say we're creating a opportunity to make sure that it's linked to the proper account and so on and so forth.
Yep, absolutely. We do support that. You can actually do so by inserting variables. So if there is like a specific account that you created in your graph elsewhere, you can add that. Or if you just have a specific ID in mind, you can also enter that as well. But yeah, for example, like events, there's a normally linked to some kind of like account, for example. You can do so there.
Okay. So those will have all the proper relationships at the moment of creation. Okay. Awesome. All right. So moving into, this has been requested for a long time, account hierarchies. And can you tell us about how we set this up and our approach to doing this? And there are multiple related features that are sort of under this umbrella too. So if you could walk us through each of those, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. And I'm really excited to talk about our new account hierarchies feature set. So maybe just to take a step back before I jump into what we've built here. today in Salesforce, your hierarchy data is pretty limited. As you know, you do have that parent account field. So you're kind of limited to just knowing who the parent of a certain account is at any one time. Maybe the ultimate parent, if that was actually populated, but you don't really know the entire structure of the hierarchy, such as how many children does this account have? Or when you talk about the whole hierarchy, how deep is it really? How many levels are there? So to that end, just with Salesforce itself, it's pretty limiting how you can actually operationalize on this hierarchy data. To that end, our account hierarchies feature is really to help you actually access that information. So what we do is we help you map, build, and maintain your account hierarchies based off of data that you might already have in your CRM. For example, maybe it's something like Zoom info data that you already have, or Duns and Bradstreet, or maybe just your own custom data. What we do is we take that, help put that into a specific hierarchy object so that you can actually now start to see those hierarchy structures in its entirety, and as well as operationalize on those account relationships through our orchestration and routing automation. Yeah, if you go to the next slide, I can start introducing our more specific features under this.
Sure.
And yeah, it really starts out with the mapping functionality. So what we do here is we are building and storing those hierarchy relationships in a LeanData hierarchies custom object. This object stores all of that information in the hierarchy, basically like every account that actually exists as a part of that hierarchy, to really help you understand those relationships. Now, as a part of this, we are also continuously maintaining your hierarchies as accounts are added or updated. So maybe a new account comes in, or some kind of hierarchy data was updated on an existing account. We are listening for that, and we will update those accounts and put them in the right hierarchies appropriately. So if that's no longer something you might have to manually do, we will pick that information. Now, another piece of this is we can also help you update your native parent account field on your account records. So take that Zoom info example. You might have that company ID information just in a separate field. We can take that and actually use that to link your actual parent accounts in that parent account standard Salesforce field. Now, as a part of account hierarchies management in general, there's obviously the possibility to have some more messy hierarchy data in your system. What we do is we help surface those errors, to kind of show when a hierarchy might be broken, as well as flagging duplicate accounts that might exist in a hierarchy to help resolve those. So we'll surface those for you admins, and you can kind of open those up and resolve them accordingly. Now, yeah, like I mentioned here, once again, we are just helping you leverage that full hierarchy context with this mapping feature. You'd be able to use it in a visualization, which I'll talk to later, as well as use it in your routing to really help with those more complex hierarchy-aware routing use cases.
Before we move on, so just to ensure that I'm understanding this properly, so we're using informations from some enrichment provider, some third party, to be able to follow the hierarchy relationships there. We're not following the parent account field that's natively in Salesforce, but we can update that if we need to, correct?
Yeah, correct. So yes, we will be using that data that you might have already enriched in your CRM. Now, as a note, we've seen some companies where they do actually just update that parent field. We can also build those hierarchies off of that standard field. Once again, it's different in that, look, we are actually building out that entire hierarchy, not just looking at what parent, like that single parent value.
Okay, got it. You might talk about this later, but in terms of utilizing these hierarchy relationships within your orchestration, your routing, that's something that we can do as well, right?
Yeah, so it's actually a good transition to my next slide there. We are introducing a new account hierarchy match node so that you can actually reference those hierarchy members from a given account, so that you can use that in your flow builder flows. For example, you might want to use it in routing, or maybe updating certain records, or just notifying about that. So to break down how this works, you can choose, you essentially provide which account that you're looking at. So maybe in your lead flow, you found a matched account and you want to see, hey, is that account actually part of a broader hierarchy? You'd add that account, and what we do is we actually retrieve the hierarchy for that account and allow you to select what members of that hierarchy that you actually want to use as information in your graph. So some examples here are you can actually figure out who that top level parent is, maybe just pull in all the descendants of a certain account in the hierarchy so that you can use it in your routing flows. We often hear customers use this where they might want to choose to route prospects and opportunities from a subsidiary account directly to the top level parent. That's one use case we've heard, but we've also heard companies have more kind of divisional territory structures. So to that end, with an account, you can actually identify which are those divisional subsidiaries and the owners that should actually own them as well.
I see. Just taking a look at the screenshot, I'm not sure if it's readable for a lot of folks, but it looks like you can select more than one member of the hierarchy here. So what's a use case where you would need to identify more than like the parent account or the child account?
Yeah, so what we've seen, this is more for kind of proactive notifications for owners. So, an account comes in and the person who's working that account, they might actually want to see like, hey, what else? Give me some more context on this account. So like the entire hierarchy case is a good example of that. You would store that set of accounts in a variable and you might use that in a notification down the line. Being like, hey, like you're working this account, but it's actually part of this hierarchy with these members. Maybe check for any opportunities that are already open under any of those members.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Right. Anything else on this slide?
No, let's get to the next one here. All right, so this is the other piece of our account hierarchies functionality. Really the end user here are those that work in Salesforce, but we do include a visualization that is configurable as well as Salesforce permissions aware. So this is a Visualforce page that you can put in Salesforce, and it will display all of the parent-child relationships across the entire account hierarchy. So this is moving beyond just knowing what the parent is, what the ultimate parent is. You actually see that account. You see the rest of the accounts in that hierarchy, and you see where in the hierarchy that account sits. Now, this is going to be configurable. You can add whatever fields that might be relevant to your your users. And additionally, you can add some related object tabs for any standard or custom object so that you can actually get complete visibility into those related records across the hierarchy. Example here is opportunities. Something that's really helpful is being able to see every open opportunity that exists in an entire hierarchy so that you aren't necessarily, you can kind of see where you are already maybe conversing with a certain prospect within that hierarchy itself. That can help with finding opportunities for more unified selling, as well as like maybe cross-selling across the actual hierarchy. As part of this, we've also introduced roll-up footers so that you can calculate those metrics across the hierarchies. Something maybe like, hey, how many unique owners do I have across this hierarchy? Maybe if it's a high number, something might be wrong there. There's an opportunity to come in and kind of fix that. And then just CSV export support so that you can actually report and do some more deeper analysis on this.
Wow, there's a lot of stuff here. It looks like it supports custom relationships as well, not just opportunities and contacts, things you would expect to be a part of an account relationship, but we even see things like LeanData journeys, service contracts, and things like that. So that's fully customizable.
Yes. So yeah, that's fully customizable. In the configuration page, you can choose which objects to actually show, related objects show, so long as it is related to the account. That's all fair game, so that you'll see them under their appropriate accounts.
Right. You might have already addressed this, but what is one thing that you might expect folks will start doing differently once they have hierarchy set up and in place?
Yeah, I think really this is part of just providing more context here. No longer will you just be selling in necessarily isolation on just a certain account level. You can actually see what's going on across the whole hierarchy, which really represents the corporate structure, right? So you can find any opportunities to maybe sell into other places within that corporate. Just think about some of those large enterprise accounts with many subsidiaries. you can actually get that full picture there.
Great. Awesome. Okay. Now, question about what about the accounts that are not yet in your Salesforce system? What do you do about those?
Right. So as a part of that, we do address that with our whitespace discovery functionality. So this is something that you can use to surface any, whitespace entities that actually are part of your hierarchies, but they aren't necessarily represented in your CRM as an account. Now, we're doing this with an integration with Zoom Info. We will leverage the Zoom Info information to figure out, which missing companies are in your hierarchies and surface that within either the visualization or an admin specific page where they can actually see that full list of all of those whitespace accounts within their CRM. Now, the action there would be to create an account if you kind of decide like, hey, like, I think we actually do want to create this account so that we can start selling into them. What we do there is when you do click create account, we do automatically update that with the parent and the parent enriched information so that it will just be automatically inserted into your hierarchy. Optionally, you can also enrich it with additional firmographic data just provided by Zoom Info.
Okay.
Now, I think really here is just supporting more strategic account planning, helping with identifying those gaps. I see this happening maybe more on like those quarterly refreshes where you're just looking at all of your accounts and seeing like, hey, where are the missing opportunities that we might want to go tackle?
Mm-hmm. No, that's really helpful. And it's really cool that you can create it directly from the interface there. I'm assuming that there's plans to expand to other enrichment providers as well, right?
Yeah, that is in the plan. We are talking to additional providers and we'll kind of update as we get more providers.
All right, excellent. Thanks for walking through all of those account hierarchies features. Anything else that we missed or failed to mention here?
No, I think, I went through a lot of different features, but it's really just this entire feature set.
Yeah.
Multiple ways you may actually want to leverage them. Maybe the visualization is useful for specific use cases, while actually automating routing is different. So there's just a lot of ways you can use this. And yeah, looking forward to kind of seeing how our customers are using this functionality.
Great. Well, thanks, Isabel, for walking us through those features. Now let's make our transition over to scheduling. As we do, just a reminder for those who aren't familiar with LeanData scheduling, it's actually an entire suite of products, a whole family of products that's meant to facilitate scheduling across your entire customer lifecycle. And one of our goals was to make scheduling as flexible as possible to meet everything that you might need to do with it and whatever use cases that you have for booking a meeting. Now, one of the things that we have seen quite a bit is a lot of folks are building AI-driven experiences, and those may or may not have a native scheduling component built into it. So how does LeanData come alongside and support these newer AI-enabled processes? And for that, I'm going to ask Daniel to come on and tell us about scheduling APIs.
I would love to. Thank you, Kevin. All right. So we're releasing our next version of scheduling APIs. This next version is really focused around offering API endpoints that power use cases beyond a custom BFF scheduling page, really focused on AI agents and AI SDRs. So let me give you a bit of a background. Scheduling APIs V1, those were meant to enable our customers who want to build their own custom book of reforms scheduling experience. And those were great. But then we have other customers really recently who are building their own AI agents, and they needed to expose more scheduling functionality from us in order for these agents to take the actions that they need to take. So that's really what V2 is around and the difference between V1 and V2. So the new endpoints, this is what they could do. One, they give customers the ability to retrieve trigger nodes fields from the book of reforms graph. They allow you to retrieve availability for a rep given their booking link. They allow you to retrieve upcoming meetings for a prospect given that prospect's email address. And they also give you the ability to surface meeting details using a meeting ID. Right. So I'm going to go through some of the use cases for each one of these. I think that'll make the benefits most clear. So that first one, trigger node fields from the book of forms graph. So if your AI agent is able to constantly query your book of forms graph to get the latest inputs that are required for scheduling or that are required for routing, then you don't have to continually update your agent and tell it, okay, now I'm looking for the company field, or now I want to ask for industry, or now I want to ask for company size. Your agent will just be able to directly query your book of forms graph and the trigger node that you like in order to get those inputs right away. So that just removes some configuration on our customer's end and keeps the AI agent totally up to date. The next one, availability for a rep with their booking link. So some of our customers are building AI agents that are able to do some sort of outbound email motions. And one of the things that we've heard is that sometimes you do want to insert availability time slot directly in that email body. It's more conversational and people like responding to those. So some of our customers have found success with that. So with this endpoint, Kevin, let's say you're the rep and you have a booking link. The agent will be able to retrieve your availability with your booking link and just insert those available time slots that, let's say, you have for the next week in that email. So quite powerful here. You don't need a user interface. We just return those time slots and the agent has what they need in order to book time on your calendar. The next one, upcoming meeting for a prospect with their email address. This we've seen customers want to build notifications within applications. So let's say you log in to an application, and when you after you've logged in, there's a banner that pops up that says, "Kevin, looking forward to meeting with you at 2 p.m. on Friday. You'll be meeting with Daniel." And so now, because we're able to know, like, Kevin, you've logged in, we have your email address, we're able to pull your upcoming meetings, we're able to power these in-app notifications. But it could also be useful if, let's say, somebody is talking to an AI agent through chat and they just want to know, do I have any meetings coming up? Or if the agent wants to let somebody know who they're already talking with, like, hey, we don't need to schedule another meeting. We actually already have one on the books. Or would you like to cancel that one and should we schedule a new one? So it's just providing more context to agents around, that user and what they have coming up. And then finally, meeting details with meeting ID. So imagine you just provide the meeting ID and the API endpoint returns all the details for that meeting. Who's it scheduled with, when it's going to happen, things of that nature. And that way we can power confirmation banners. We can, the AI agent could just directly output that information at the end of a chat conversation. So there's just a ton of new use cases that we're supporting. These are the ones we're releasing MV2. And it's really just meant to support our customers who are building their own agents, and then also companies who have AI SDRs and are looking to provide some more advanced functionality.
Yeah, absolutely. This sounds really exciting and looking forward to all the different ways that folks incorporate these different endpoints. I think it'd be helpful to kind of see an example of this in action. So I think you have one to show us today.
Yeah, so we have put together an Agentforce implementation. What you're seeing right now is us, chatting with this Agentforce implementation, and we told it, "Hey, I'd like to schedule a meeting." And so the response is, "Okay, I need some information: first name, last name, email, country, product interest, company." So the person responding here is going to provide that information. And then using our API endpoints, as agents able to get our availability, return it. And then as the person who's typing, I'm able to select the time slot that I'd like. Then the agent goes ahead and books that time and the meeting gets scheduled. So this is just a nice visualization of an agent using our API endpoints to complete a scheduling flow end to end.
That's awesome. That's great to see it in action and just really see how smooth that whole experience is. Thanks for showing that.
Absolutely.
So our next feature that we have is routing links. So two terms that I'm not used to seeing together, Daniel. So could you tell us about routing links and what this is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So routing links, I think it's a well-named feature because it is literally links that have routing capabilities. It's something that customers have asked for a really long time. It really combines our strengths with routing, which already exists through BFF, Book of Performs, that customers are very familiar with, all of the matching capabilities, all the way to scheduling with event creation per schedule node. It combines all of that with the flexibility of links, where there's a really easy wizard to follow. You're able to create links. You're able to, give those out to reps. Very useful for a variety of use cases. Routing links seeks to make up for some of the shortcomings with links. Most notably, that links didn't have any routing capabilities. And so now you can have a link that utilizes whatever logic you've set up in your Book of Performs graph. So you can imagine it's just a single link that you can send out to, a variety of prospects. Imagine we're emailing people after this webinar, and they could click a routing link, and that each one can receive the same routing link. So we only need to make one. And all of those prospects would get routed through whatever logic you have configured in Book of Performs. Now, something we've added that's really powerful within routing links is the ability to create leads or contacts. So we don't actually have to hook up to your marketing automation. We could do all of that configuration within the Book of Performs graph. There's a few really big benefits of doing this. One, you no longer need to set up a web page that has a form on it that connects to marketing automation and get all the approval you need in order to, set that up. We'll provide this form. It's part of the configuration when you're setting up a routing link. And then nothing has to be connected to marketing automation because we'll create the lead and contact. And if you want to audit anything, it's all within your audit logs for Book of Performs. So it's quite powerful. There are a lot of different use cases we're going to see with routing links. One that comes up often now is chatbot implementations.
Right.
So this really simplifies chatbot implementations because we handle pretty much everything. We don't need to rely on the chatbot provider to write a bucket log ID to the record that marketing automation creates. We take care of all of that within routing links. So quite powerful, and we're very excited for all the different ways customers are going to use it.
Awesome. So just to sort of reiterate what you're saying, we're taking the power and the flexibility of Book of Performs, being able to use a routing graph to send things to different endpoints for different users. But we are giving our users the access to that with the convenience of a link. And then all the forms and filling out the forms and collecting the information is taken care of by that actual routing link.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Great.
And something we hear often, is this desire to skip forms. They're like, we don't want prospects filling out more information if we already have that information. Yes, you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to skip the routing links form. That would be done by passing through URL parameters to the routing link. And so, yeah, if we have, a prospect's first name, last name, email address, et cetera, we're able to skip that and go straight into scheduling. So another really neat part of routing links.
Yeah, I can see that being really useful with different marketing automation, that you can just put a variable in for those parameters. That's really useful. What happens if you make a link, it's connected with the routing graph or a Book of Performs graph, and then the graph changes before someone uses it and then someone uses it? Does that change the logic behind it? How does that work?
Yeah, so when you're creating a routing link, you're going to tell us which trigger node to use within your Book of Performs graph. And so we'll just respect all of the logic downstream of that trigger node. And so if logic changes downstream of that trigger node, you don't have to go update all of your links. As long as it's using that same trigger node, we're just going to follow that logic. Now, if you try to update a trigger node that existing links are using, we're going to give you a warning and let you know, like, hey, if you change this name, we might not be able to associate this routing link with your graph. So we've put that into place to try to prevent any unintended consequences there of changing names. But yeah, it's we'll just follow whatever logic, no additional setup.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks for walking us through that. It looks like we got some more here.
Yeah, this is just a kind of visualization of the major parts of routing links. On the left there is your book of performs graph. This is all the logic you can set up to your heart's desire. And then the next part, these are a few screenshots from the routing links creation wizard. You're going to select your routing links trigger node. You can configure the form, rearrange things, change labels, apply whatever styling you would like. And then finally on the right, this is what the routing links form looks like. It's pretty simple, but it gets the job done with your logo, with your styling, with all the forms you'd like. You're able to add additional guest emails. So all the functionality that you'd expect typically through links, you still have that. And then above that is just what the routing link URL looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like it really greatly simplifies the setup for a lot of folks. So this is awesome. Okay. All right. Conditional user provisioning. So this feature targets more of that aspect of admin velocity and reducing that administrative overhead of managing a lot of users. So Daniel, can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, totally. So conditional user provisioning, you nailed it, Kevin. It's really around the theme of reducing admin friction. One of the things admins have to do when new reps are added to their org is log into the LeanData, log into Salesforce, go to the LeanData application for the new reps and invite them to authorize. And so it's time consuming, it's repetitive, and we knew that there is a better way to handle this. And the way we're handling it is with conditional user provisioning. What this allows an admin to do is set up conditions. And when new users, new Salesforce users meet those conditions, we can send them automatic invites to authorize their calendar. And so those automatic invites are sent out on whatever frequency a customer or an admin would like. It could be hourly, daily. And then also we can provide email notifications each time one of those things happen to keep admins aware of who was invited and for what products. You'll be able to control the product access given to the users who are invited. And then, yeah, it'll be fully auditable, through those email notifications. So you'll be able to see kind of exactly what's happened. So yeah, it's a very nice feature. Hopefully admins can put this in the past. They don't have to take care of this manual activity anymore. And we're going to save them some time.
Yeah. So you mentioned the emails that go out within the LeanData interface itself. Is there a way that you can sort of monitor the status of the invites that have gone out and whether users have authorized?
Yeah, you can see who's going to be invited through our preview functionality. So when you click provision users there, you'll be able to preview to see who meets those conditions and who will actually receive the next invitation. And then on our general users page is where you'll be able to see who is still invited, who's authorized, who's deauthorized, all the information for a user.
Okay, excellent. Great quality of life feature for our admins. A lot of folks have been clamoring for something like that. All right, so I believe this will be our last feature we discussed today, but SMS reminders. So I think this is one from earlier this year, but we haven't had a chance to cover it yet. So can you talk us through SMS reminders?
Yeah, so SMS reminders is very exciting. It mirrors email reminders in many of the same ways. It's just text messages that we can send out to either hosts or guests, or guests. So you can enable both. And what we'll do is we'll send out text messages. We'll provide compliance language on the scheduling page. Actually, admins, customers will provide the compliance language. We provide the ability to specify the compliance language in all the languages that we support. So in case if you are wanting to localize that language, you have that ability. And when prospects provide their phone number on the scheduling information page, we're able to use that phone number and send out text messages. This is all done through Twilio, so you'll need to have the Twilio account. You'll need to do that authorization. And just there on the bottom right is a little bit what it looks like. You've got an authorized Twilio account. You're able to specify SMS. But one thing I want to call out, this is new for both emails and SMS, is the ability to set different timing triggers. So previously, you could only send emails a certain amount of time before a meeting. But now you can do that on conditions. So you can send it a certain amount of time before a meeting if a guest has accepted, if a guest has declined, or even if a guest has not responded. So you're able to have far more targeted reminders depending on if a guest has accepted, declined, or not responded. So whatever the guest has done on that calendar event. And so we're really excited for that. In general, we know SMS reminders are open much more than emails. So we're really looking forward to reducing no-show rates for our customers with SMS reminders.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super helpful. How are things like reschedules handled? Like if someone reschedules the meeting, are those reflected in any reminders? Is there something that handles that?
Yeah, definitely. So we have all sorts of handling for reschedules and cancellations, just to ensure that, if the meeting is still happening, they're still rescheduled, and there's still like a valid reminder to be sent out. We'll still absolutely respect that and still remind somebody, 15 minutes before their meeting, even if it's been rescheduled. And then if a meeting's canceled, we're not going to send any more reminders because that meeting's no longer going to happen.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Daniel, for walking us through those features. And thank you for Isabel and Dax also for walking us through these features. So before we sign off, I do want to highlight some of the upcoming events that we have. It's a good way to learn about more of the features that we have in LeanData, perhaps with a little bit more depth. So the very next event we have is a webinar on buyer-centric RevOps, aligning revenue teams to the buyer journey. That's going to be happening on March 11th. On the day after that, on March 12th, we have an expert hour, getting started with Bookit links. So exploring use cases across the whole buyer journey. And then on the 18th, we have a certification class, Pacific time zone. So if you are not certified, please sign up for that. And then on the 19th, we have a customer spotlight webinar with Telium, and they'll be walking us through how they're using LeanData Bookit with their AI agent and AI SDR. So you don't want to miss that. And you can access registration for these at our events page. So please make sure that you utilize that. All right, everyone. Well, thank you again to our product team for joining us today and walking us through these features. And thank you for everyone who made the time today to attend this webinar. So I hope you learned something that was valuable to you. If you haven't yet been upgraded or ramped to this release, I encourage you to reach out to your CSM so we can get you on the latest and greatest. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.